So welcome to the Sokoman webinar in order to discuss the till sampling and what the plans are going forward. So Tim is going to be presenting, of course, and we're pretty excited about these till samples. So you'll understand really why we're so excited. And just to let everybody know that we will have this taped, so it can replay. You can replay this at any time at your leisure. It might take us a few hours to get it ready, but it will be available sometime probably later today. So please look for it and review it at your leisure. So without any further ado, I'd like to certainly, Tim, take it away and enlighten us, please.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you to everyone who is joining in one form or another. I understand some people may not have video, and as Kathy mentioned, we will be making this presentation available in several formats. We can email it to you if you like. But even though this chat this afternoon was largely, to basically talk about where we are and where we're going. For the benefit of those people that may not be familiar with Sokoman's story, I'm just going to have a couple slides here just to remind and bring people up to speed as to where we are and what we've gotten, and then move on with where we intend to go. So this is our standard geology slide. It shows basically the rapidly emerging and very high profile Central Newfoundland gold play, for lack of a better name. Several projects currently are drilling, us included. Newfound Gold, I believe Labrador Gold just started drilling, and I think even a couple more companies are drilling in the region as well. So lots going on, lots to talk about. Clearly, Moosehead is our flagship project, and you see it there near the top of the map, the big yellow star. It sits on that black line, which is basically the structure that sits, it runs basically the length of the island and includes several key gold prospects, including way to the southwest there. You see the red star for the Valentine Lake deposits, which we think will be the next gold mine in this province. Either Marathon will put it in production, or perhaps someone a little bigger than them will swim by and gobble them up. And either way, it works for me. Mines are welcome. And certainly the structure is alive. And yeah, we've been pretty busy. If you see here, diamond drilling highlights on the next slide, Thomas, please. We've drilled basically 28,000, well, probably just over 30,000 meters currently. We've drilled about 2,000 meters in the current program. I'll talk more about the current program towards the end of the presentation. I just want to get a bit of a history and get the story up to date for everybody. So 5 phases of drilling, just under 28,000. In 2018, with our initial hole, we discovered we cut about 12 meters, about 45 grams. That's when things kind of got exciting for us, and we were able to raise a couple $1 million, and yeah, I've been basically successful with every phase of drilling to date. Has returned some spectacular bonanza grade type intersections. You see some of them listed there. Phase 2, in fact, one of our better holes in the entire program, hole 39, returned 5 meters of basically 4 ounces, including whopping 1.1 meters of half a kilo of gold. We could use a few more of those, and I'm sure they're down there. We just got to get a bit lucky, and of course point the drill in the right direction. But the zone, importantly, the zone remains open in all directions. And the image you see here basically is when we get good gold, this is typically what we see. We see splashes of VG, not extremely coarse, a millimeter or two. You do get a couple of pieces bigger than that, but the key here is the association with those blue squiggly lines there you see, and these are bands of a mineral called boulangerite, which is a lead antimony sulfur salt. And, antimony is key here in that the structure, geology, and mineralization at Moosehead is almost directly comparable to the Fosterville gold deposit in Victoria, Australia, and a strong association with high-grade golds there, and the antimony mineralization. So next slide, please. So I'm going to take you back a little bit in time here. This is from, this would date back to January. Remember January? Snowmageddon, as we had it here in Newfoundland with record snow. Hints of a virus in the air. Unfortunately, those hints soon became more of a reality, and it's the reality we're in right now. It is impacting exploration to some degree, but certainly not too badly. One of the things that we can speak of here in this province, at least, I'm not sure about the country, but mining and activities related to mining is considered an essential service in Newfoundland, so we're able to continue with our exploration efforts without too much. Obviously, social distancing and mask wearing is mandatory, and it's added a little bit extra to our costs and our time, but overall, it's business as usual for us. So anyway, so what you see here basically is a portion. It's not the entire survey, but just for clarity and the purposes of talking about specific areas that we're focusing on. What you see here is the colored image is the residual magnetic survey with the phase 1 till sampling superimposed on it. A couple of other features you will see here include the 2 white arrows, which basically show the range of glacial ice directions that have been determined from well, there aren't any outcrops on the property, but certainly there have been studies of the glacial till in the region, and specifically at the Moosehead property. And these would be the 2 dominant till directions that would be moving ice and gold-bearing material, quartz float, etc., gold grains, largely from the bottom of the map towards the top of the map. I've also included in this slide an element from one of our more recent press releases talking about some float sampling that we found very recently, in fact in July I believe it was, at South Pond as part of the follow-up for the phase one sampling. And you can see there are 2 distinct clusters of float. On the western edges of the pond you see material that grades about 2 grams per ton. But more importantly, on the eastern side, there's a series of float, and I think it was 13 samples that averaged well over an ounce. In fact, 36 and change grams with a high of I think 157 grams, which is more reminiscent of mineralization we see at the eastern trend and even in the western trend as well. But certainly the strong association with antimony again. Is very key here and suggests that the structure hosting the eastern trend is alive and well. In fact, much further to the south, because these float samples, based on the ice direction, would not have come from North Pond. They would have come from further south, somewhere on the property. And based on the delicacy of some of the grains in some of these samples, probably not too far away. So definitely within the boundaries of the Moosehead property. So basically what we did for phase 1 sampling was we collected on a property-wide basis 132 sea horizon tills, lines, sample lines spaced 500 meters apart, and with sample spacing on those lines at 250 meters. Approximately 10 to 12 kilograms of screen material was collected and sent to Overburden Drilling Management in Ottawa for gold grain analysis and morphological, basically, descriptions. And based on that, ODM, who also, by the way, laid out basically the basic plan you see here, subsequently proposed a phase 2 follow-up program, which involved certain focused areas for a total of another 69 samples. So next slide, Thomas, please. So what you see here basically is the same image, but instead of the gold grains, I put on here the calculated PPB gold from the tills, including the phase 1 and the follow-up samples, just to show a different aspect of how we interpret the data. And so what you see here basically is a very strong anomaly known as anomaly A, and these were described briefly in the press release, but now you get to see it in a little more detail. and certainly hear a more, probably a more verbose explanation as to what's going on. But yeah, so clearly anomaly A is a very striking geochem target, and it's, of course, sitting right on what looks to be a very interesting structural sort of setting as well. And I'll get into a little bit more of the structure in the coming slides, but clearly you see there the the purples, bright purples, trending more or less to the northeast and the southwest, kind of terminating kind of in a line, if you will, trending north roughly to the middle of that geochem anomaly. And that's very interesting, because I think what this suggests is there's the evidence for the structure, and that it keeps going to the north. And obviously areas that we'll be looking at in more detail. A, with follow-up on the ground, and B, with additional drilling either later in the 10,000 meter program we have now, or part of a winter program if there's any meterage left over, and if we just continue drilling. I mean, there's no reason to stop if we're getting good results. So again, back to South Pond, where the boulder clusters are, you certainly see a plethora, if you will, of anomalous soil till values there, including the second highest count of gold in the till survey at 78,000 calculated ppb. And ODM does that based on measuring and the size of the gold grains. They've done this for hundreds of thousands of gold grains. So and typically their calculated results come within 10% or so of, for the most part, of course, there are anomalies to that. Of the calculated. So we expect these gold values to be real, and again, I want to draw your attention just to the very bottom of the map. You'll see there's a burgeoning cluster of higher grade gold values right along the bottom line of the map there, Thomas. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. And for those that like looking at gold, I know I do. This is some of the gold grains that we see from the whole, sample 854, which is in the center of the anomaly A. And even though they're not large, what's most important is their delicacy. In other words, their morphology, or their overall shape. And what you really like to see if you're, if you've got a property and you've got a till anomaly on it, you want to see, a fair number of pristine, which are basically, largely undeformed, to slightly, to slightly modified gold grains. Gold, of course, is soft, and instead of breaking or powdering, instead it just sort of rounds and becomes basically nuggets. So the grain in the top line in the middle, that would probably be a grain that's had a little bit of transport to it, whereas the grain next to it, the more angular, leafy looking one, would be one that would be a little closer to source. And in fact, according to ODM, grains that look like, say, it's its fourth one from the left on the top line, are probably more likely within 200 meters of their source, which is very good, because that means it's firmly implanted or came from some source on the Moosehead property. So this is just an example of the service that ODM provides, and how sometimes it's not the size of the sample that matters, it's what's in it. And clearly you start seeing delicate gold grains like this, you have reason to get excited. The next slide, please. So that mag map that I showed you a couple slides back, we had it processed. We gave the data to a geophysicist who basically looked at the and I believe this is just changing the sun angle, or the shadowing of the that the image was looked at, to enhance features that may not be evident in one direction versus another. But what I should be saying here is that the western and eastern zones of mineralization, the two dark stars you see there in the middle of the slide, they clearly seem to be linked to a couple of described as comet-looking sort of features that seem to have a funneling or a very strong cluster of tightly lined of structures. And this is certainly something that we've seen in drilling, whereby we'll hit multiple structures in drilling in both the western and eastern trends, suggesting that there are multiple features, and this is a large, wide, robust system. And in fact, the drilling that we've done to date may not even be testing the full widths of the zone. And if you see anomaly B there, where I've got marked, which is to the east of North Pond, there's a till anomaly sitting right in another parallel zone of features that looks quite similar to till anomaly A. So, and there's more to the story as well with that, and I'll get into that in a few slides. But any number of these structures could, or any one or two or more of these features could have gold mineralization sitting along them. And I want to draw your attention to the southernmost yellow circle, the 53 gold grains. 28 of those grains were deemed pristine by ODM, which again suggests a very minimal transport distance, probably just a couple of 100 meters. And as you can see, there's a couple of features, a couple of structures that sit right in and around that sample site that certainly could be the source or possibly related to or lead us to mineralization actually in bedrock. And this is certainly one of the areas that we'll be testing with a component of the 10,000 meter phase 6 program that's currently underway. And of course, till anomaly D, you see multiple structures there sitting basically bullseye right on the and most of those features you see there, those lines, have no drilling on them, none whatsoever. So I'm very excited about that, and that will obviously be priority for us as part of the till follow-up phase of phase 6. Next slide, Thomas. So here are those two features basically side by side. So you can sort of imagine where A is on the slide on the right-hand side. All those lines kind of line up basically in the middle of the anomaly A that you see the mag on the slide on the right. So there's lots of good marriages to be made here, and certainly lots of support for localized features being the source of a lot of this gold that we're seeing in the tills. And there's almost too many things here to test, which is not a bad problem to have, I guess, if you're in the business of exploration. But again, a bit of luck sometimes to help guide the program forward. But we'll do our best to test as many of these things as we possibly can, and and if need be, move into 2021 with another phase. So lots to look forward to. Next slide, Thomas, please. I mentioned a few minutes ago anomaly B, which sits again further to the east of the eastern trend. This is a photo taken last week, and this is our prospecting captain, Rick Crocker, examining one of basically a field of boulders that sit just under the moss. In fact, it was just a little piece of quartz sticking out that he saw, and this was during the follow-up of the tills. And I'm quite excited about this because it's again, it's a feature that's not been drill tested, and it does show textures that are very reminiscent of some of the things that we see in the eastern trend. We don't have any assays today. We do have some samples in the lab for assay, but again, I'll say that this stuff in places, some of this material resembles quartz breccia zones that host high-grade gold in the very last hole that we drilled in phase 5, hole 98, which cut 2.5 meters of about 8.25 grams, including I think 20 or 30 grams in over 3/4 of a meter in certain sections. And even in those trees in behind Rick there, huge blocks of quartz. I mean, it's not just one. That's not rubble from one block that he's beaten up. This is multiple blocks that are person sized, so and angular. So these haven't come very far. Next slide, please. So what you see here is basically a piece of that quartz float on the left-hand side, leaning up against a piece of core from hole 2098. And to me, they look kind of similar in many respects. You see the brecciated nature of the quartz. You see the dark gray siliceous matrix with weakly disseminated sulfides and larger fragments here, of course. And but I also want to impress. If you look at the table of results that's up on the top right side of the slide here, you know, within that zone, you know, the grades are variable, and I think that's something that needs to be kept in mind. You know, you could be very close to something here in these systems. They're nuggety by their nature, so I mean, you know, so you're going to get variances in grade, you know, anywhere from 0.3 grams, you know, up to 15 grams. So, but the point is that you're very, very close to something very significant. And I think that those float samples, and they will be drilled this year, you know, certainly suggest that, you know, 500 meters further to the east of the eastern zone, we could have a parallel zone, which really shouldn't surprise anyone on this property. Next slide, please. So, you know, we could talk about specific anomalies here, but you know, I think the you know, certainly the and I guess I should point out, Thomas, can you just put your cursor around those? Oops. Okay. Yeah, those three dots to the east of North Pond. It would be right above the word trend in Eastern Trend. Yeah, a bit to the right of that. Now, right on the edge of the map. Yeah, you see there's three larger open circles there? Yep, just right there, right where you are now. That's just down ice from where this float was I was just describing that looks like the breccias in the Eastern Trend. So you can see there's quite a distance here. And again, you know, the ice direction would certainly suggest that it is a new and independent source of mineralization. So move on, Thomas, please. So here you see basically hole 98, and you can see this zone. I'm not sure if we showed this photograph before, but anyway, this is hole 98, the last hole of phase 5. You know, the grades are somewhat a little more modest than most people probably would like, me included. But you know what? We drill for structure first, and you know, the grades will come. That is an isolated hole and open. So, you know, but again, you'll see the brecciated nature of this and the variances in grades. You know, you can go just a few centimeters and go from 15 grams to, you know, less than a gram to 5 grams. So, you know, whatever those rock samples assay, I'm confident that they'll come back with some gold. They're a bona fide drill target, and I think very exciting moving forward. Next slide, Thomas. So this is basically the proposed phase 6 program as it was 2 weeks ago. What you're looking at here in green, the green dots are the first pass holes. Basically, these are the holes that Mercator has recommended in consulting. Of course, we agree as a first pass, and we're working on those right now. The orange colored dots are infill holes. Basically, if you get a good hole, well, you want to drill around it. It just makes sense because these holes are spaced basically 50 meters to 100 meters apart. So they're aggressive step outs, and you know, you run a risk in these nuggety high grade systems in that, you know, you could just miss something. But like I said, we drill for structure first. I'm very comfortable getting structure, and the grades will come. The mineralization will come. As well, we have the blue holes are 7 exploration holes that are independent of the till anomalies. Basically, things that Mercator and us would like to see tested. And the 3 green dots, or sorry, the 3 purple dots on the west side of North Pond are 3 holes proposed to test the down dip. We now believe that the western trend, instead of being a flat line system, is probably subparallel to parallel to the eastern trend and dips off to the east. In fact, you see the traces of both zones as we have them defined. In purple is the eastern trend, just coming off the shoreline of North Pond, and a couple hundred meters to the west of that in teal, I guess it is, that green color, is the surface trace of the western trend. So you can see, I mean, you know, especially in the western trend, there's very little drilling beyond the edge of it, and you know, there are till anomalies up there. So you know, we'll be looking at that as well. So you know, this program, as you see laid out here, is more than 10,000 meters actually, and it doesn't include any allowances for the till sampling. So we're going to have to juggle, you know, maybe not drilling some of these, you know, phase one or first pass holes or some of the infill holes in favor of drilling some of the higher priority till targets, which I'm in favor of, and putting off some of these for a later program. But either way, we've got a lot of work to do. As you saw, the you know, structural map is showing, you know, linears, you know, in abundance, and with strong gold grain counts down ice from many of them. So we're very confident that, you know, moving forward, you know, and we might not hit with every hole, but, you know, like I said, we drill for structure first, and the grades will come later. And, so that's about all I have to say for now. Oh, I will say this. We've completed 7 holes of phase 6. We've drilled the 3 western trend holes and 4 holes in the eastern trend. And we don't have any assays yet. So, you know, that's about all I can say about it, because that's about all I can say about it. You know, we will hope to have results in the coming weeks, certainly enough to do you know, maybe a first release, but you know, it has to make sense as well. There's no sense putting out a news release on a half dozen assays. It won't have any context or any meaning. So, and things are getting slow at the lab. You know, according to my guys who dropped off their first batch of samples not too long ago, there's piles of samples at the lab, piles. So we'll just have to take our turn. So anyway. Okay, well, this is hopefully an open forum, and if there are questions, I'll certainly do my best to answer them, and if I cannot answer them right at this minute, I will answer them and respond in an email or a text or something, but you know, we'll do our best to get you an answer.
Hi everybody, Irina here, IR manager from CHF Capital Markets. I think I'll be moderating the Q&A today, and we have received a couple of questions in advance. But if anybody wants to do live Q&A, you're more than welcome to ask questions. You can either ask them with the video, just the audio, or even submit them in a chat box. Just type them in and I will read them out loud. But we will probably start with the questions that we already received prior, right, Tim? And then we can see if there's anything else. So the first one was, how should we interpret the till sample having found grains on the ground? Does it mean we expect to strike gold quite shallow in the drilling?
Well, for one thing, it's good to get gold grains in your till samples on your property. It means that there's somewhere down ice or from where the glaciers traveled, there is a source of gold at bedrock that the glacier scraped off and you know, liberated gold grains into the gravels as it moved forward. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, in terms of how shallow the mineralization would be, well, the gold grains that are in the till were clearly scraped off of bedrock surface. So, you know, it's clearly at somewhere back ice, there is a quartz vein somewhere with gold grains in it that's sitting right at bedrock. You should be able to walk on it. The problem at Moosehead is that there is no outcrop. There's a layer of till anywhere from 4 to 10 meters thick that blanket the property. So, you know, this is where doing the infill samples and as well, you know, a grid pattern helps establish where the cutoff should be for the gold grains that you're seeing in your till. You just, you know, need to keep walking up ice, and when you stop seeing gold in the till or lower counts or significantly lower counts, because you know this area is, you know, I think the property is mineralized from one end to the other. So you need to figure out where the gold grains in a specific sample are coming from, and for that you use your delicacy index. You know, if they're pristine, you shouldn't have to go back more than 200 meters. If they're somewhat modified, or you know, a little bent or a little whatever, a little rounded, probably 500 meters. If they're really rounded, they could have come a ways, conceivably off the property. But we know that there's till anomalies kilometers to the south of us, so that shouldn't surprise anyone. But the thing is, we know that there's mineralization at surface because we are getting gold in the tills. It's just a matter of how deep the mineralization goes from surface. And, that takes several rounds of drilling to establish. Basically, what we're doing, with the east trend and the west trend right now.
Interesting. So the
Hello.
second question is, does anybody have?
Well, I'm on the phone. Hi, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Is there any way we can find out what the size of the land package is at Moosehead, please?
Yeah, it's 98 claims, so it's about 2,450 hectares. It's about 24.5 square kilometers.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm a shareholder. Just
Okay, no
keep
problem.
on doing the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so another question we have. Well, this one could be a little forward-looking, but would trust Tim to not disclose any information that can't be disclosed. What will be considered great success for phase 6? How many grams per ton and thickness will you, Tim, will be happy with? What will be considered a disappointment?
Well, a disappointment would be if we drilled 30 or 40 dusters, which, I don't anticipate happening. I think that's a fairly safe statement to say. What would I be happy with? Well, every phase to date has delivered, high grade results. Not in every hole. I mean, that's just not reasonable or even possible, even in these types of vein systems. I mean, they're nuggety by their very nature. And as we saw from the couple of slides there I had from core from hole 98, I mean, you can move 5 centimeters in a drill hole and get 900 ppb or half an ounce. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, the gold is not evenly distributed in the rock. And, yes, you do need luck in this business. And, sometimes more than you think. But, in terms of, success, I'd take any of our phases of drilling, and do that again. I mean, it means we've made the resource bigger. Clearly the focus for this program is to see how deep we can chase this thing within reason. And, that's certainly a goal that, I'd like to see us getting down to, 400 meters, or close to that if we can. Like I said, it's all going to depend on meterage and how the results go. Certainly we have some outstanding till results, that need to be addressed. And, I'm sure our shareholders would welcome, a diversion such as, a totally new discovery on this property, wouldn't go astray at this point either. So, it's just a matter of prioritizing, how we do this. Clearly, we're not going to drill, the 38 holes that, that are in that proposal as it is. As I mentioned, it doesn't include any reconnaissance holes, which would be the till sampling holes. We just have to go by feel, basically, and it may be a hole by hole basis. We may decide to jump after 3 or 4 more holes to test some of these till anomalies. And to be honest, some of them are best left till winter anyway because of access. You've got wet, swampy ground. You don't want your buggy or your drill, disappearing in the mud. Whereas if you waited a couple of months, so I guess what I'm saying is, yes, I do anticipate winter drilling again at Moosehead, which I think is a good thing.
And I think we announced that we said in the past that we will be releasing results, assay results in batches as well, not right away. So, right, I think it's important to mention that as well.
Yeah, you have to put them in context. And I think with the lab being so busy right now, I think, you can certainly rush samples, but, generally, you can't afford to rush your whole program. I mean, that's, you'll go broke, and no one expects that. But, you need to have a meaningful result. And, we've tried to do that in the past, and I think we'll be consistent with that. It's dangerous to release, holes on a hole by hole basis. So, we need to put, each hole in context, and that includes its neighbors. So, we'll do the best we can to get the news out as quickly as we can. And right now we've got samples going to the lab. We've got a few samples in the lab, and the drill is turning. So, I mean, we just have to be a little patient. And of course, we still have the COVID thing. I'm not quite sure how that's affecting the lab. Maybe that's why they're so busy, because they may still be on reduced staff. I never did
I think they
ask
are.
them that, but anyway, I'm sure it'll all get done. It'll all get done.
We have one more question, and then we can open the floor to live questions if anybody has any. And that is stock price versus value. Do you think the stock is underpriced? Which, I mean,
Yes.
yes, of course. I mean, you would never say it's not. Eric Sprott is a great promoter for companies he owns, does not seem to discuss Sokoman much now, participated pro rata, but did not go big on this one. What can be done or is done to get Mr. Sprott more excited, which will for sure move the price as well, in your opinion?
Well, I think he talked about this if we had another hole 39, which we're trying our best to get. But don't forget, Mr. Sprott has a very large stable of holdings, and for him, we don't pay him to promote us, but just the fact that he's participated basically in every significant financing that we've done in the past suggests that he is aware of us, he is watching us, and he's also invested in a couple of other companies in Newfoundland. So I mean, that's just as important as his holdings in us from a personal perspective. I mean, he firmly believes that Newfoundland is a place that can, that needs, finally a decent look, and that's what's happening. And his last placement was, I think, he limited out basically to the maximum that he could without having crossed that 20% limit. So, clearly his initial investment was his largest. And basically, he has been maintaining that position through smaller placements, because we haven't really issued a lot of shares since then. So I mean, it's just a math thing. It's not that he thinks any, I don't know, but any less of us. I would hope not. But the fact that he spoke with his wallet just recently in the last financing says, yeah, he's still watching and still thinks enough to help us along. And like I said, a couple of good drill holes, I'm sure will be on his podcast, in the coming weeks.
Maybe it's his hidden treasure, he's hiding it from everybody.
Yes.
Thanks, Tim. So does anybody have questions? If anybody has questions, we can open the floor, Go ahead.
Tim, on phase 5, you talk about VG that you see in the hole. Now you don't talk about what you see in the phase 6. You can talk about it?
Well, yeah, I know. It's a kind of a have my cake and eat it too sort of thing, isn't it? Sometimes things get out, and and clearly, hole 1, we did, in fact, we did something that I probably wouldn't want to do again, and that's put a picture of visible gold bearing core in the northern minor without assays. I mean, the nerve of me. But anyway, it's something that you try to mitigate expectations, I guess, and because we have had holes in the past in a couple of our earlier programs where we have reported visible gold. And the assays didn't quite, sort of deliver in terms of what you'd expect it to be. So, this is all about, and especially at this time when there's so much attention, here, we don't want to mislead or, so, for that reason, and just trying to, be good corporate citizens, we're taking the cautionary approach. And even if it seems to go a little different than what we've done in the past, that's it. We'll release results when we feel the time is right. And I appreciate your question. I know where you're coming from. Sort of thing. I sound like a politician now, don't I?
Okay. And you can talk about the second rigs.
Well, if it's out there, I don't know what we're going to do to man it. Apparently, companies that want to drill can't get drills. So I think, in fairness to the drilling companies, I think what they're doing is rather than giving us our second drill and taking one away from someone who will then have no drill, we kind of have to scratch each other's back a little bit there and just, go along with it for now. And, we have one drill, at least we're drilling, sort of thing. And, it'll take a little longer. Unfortunately, that's, it's a bad problem to have, I guess, or a good problem to have, there's just so much going on. It's a bit of a boom.
Mm-hmm. And you think you are able to drill 10,000 meters with only one rig?
It'll take a little longer. It'll take
Okay.
a little more. It'll take a little more time, right? Like I said, whatever we don't get drilled in 20 in calendar, we said the same thing last year. Whatever we didn't get drilled in 20 in calendar 2020, we'll just push it into calendar 2021 and just continue on. And as I mentioned, some of these, even some of the phase, the holes that are recommended for drilling now, they're plotted from an office. And, when you get out in the field and say, well, maybe better to save this one for winter. There's always a component of these holes that are best addressed in the wintertime when the ground is frozen, access is better, and you're not going to, get the Department of Environment up in arms because you're tearing up some swampy ground that, if you waited a couple months, you'd just fly across, sort of thing. So, we'll be drilling in 2021.
Okay, thank you, and continue your good job, Tim.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much.
Hi, Tim. Great presentation. Just wondering, more longer term, what do you see as sort of the milestones for this property, beyond phase 6, like, looking into the future a bit?
Well, the goal of phase 6 basically is to bring at least double, the depth, and I think that's something that we can certainly, and these are reasonable milestones to get to. We can certainly prioritize drilling to get down to that depth. Now, we won't be testing a very long strike length, which means you need, it's kind of a balance, right? Do you focus only on the depth? Do you focus only on the strike length? It's a bit of a balance. So, for me, if we drill, 50% of the deeper holes and we're still in the structure, that's reason enough for me to continue, but maybe not at present, unless, of course, we hit a bonanza hole, then all things change, right? But it's all relative to the moment, sort of thing. And, these programs can change in a heartbeat, but, certainly phase 6, is our largest single, committed program to date. And I think, given the markets, I think if we deliver on, most of our goals, the market will be there. And, I see, even more drilling for 2021. So it's basically just keep going, and, because, these opportunities come along so rarely. And we're in the middle of a rush here, and newfound, we may have had a role in the start of this thing. Maybe some of the people that are here now are here because of 2018 and whole 1801. So be it. But we all share the load, and if they make a discovery, it'll help us, and if we make another discovery, it'll help them. So milestones can be measured in many different ways, and for me, the fact that we're still drilling, we're still able to attract capital, that's significant.
We have more questions, so we'll just keep going. So this is a question from Cam, who's been a shareholder for a while. There seems to be concern that the land package is not big enough. I assume this general concern. How many? I'll just read it how it is. But it should be modified a little bit. But the exact question is, how many mines can you fit into 24.5 square kilometers?
Wow, that's an interesting question. If you look at camps around the world, I mean, look at Kirkland Lake. The Golden Mile, they call it, in Kirkland Lake, produced 20 million ounces of gold, 25 million ounces of gold, and they call it a mile because it's a mile. Which is 1,600 meters. The property from north end to south end is over 8 kilometers. So it's if it's continually mineralized, yeah, you can get a lot of gold on here. So no, there's no issue. I mean, a gold deposit, with several million ounces in it, would certainly fit, on a fraction of the Moosehead property, depending on grade, of course. The higher the grade, the fewer the tons, so the less rock you got to muck around and stuff. So, but I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the next drill hole, and et cetera. So size does matter in some circles, but no, the property is certainly large. There were no expectations, and certainly, no reason to think that that hole would even exist there. So I think it caught people by surprise, and run obviously haven't come back to near those levels. Are we worth 50 cents? I think we're worth closer to 50 cents than 10 cents. Yes, but I don't know how you value things like that. There's no ounces in the ground yet on each property to speak of. I think Newfound has a historical resource at one zone. I think 80,000 ounces or something, or back of the envelope sort of calculation. And don't quote me on that, but yeah. So, but can these markets support these prices? I mean, we look at other companies in the same business. I mean, Great Bear Resources, do they deserve a $16 share price? They probably do. Look where they are and look what they're getting. So I'm sure if we start to deliver some high grade, multiple high grade holes, I'm sure our stock price will reflect that. I've always said that maybe our stock is a little too loosely held. 75% of our float is or 70 is probably not in consolidated hands, and that allows for. But some people like that. Some people like the opportunity to be able to get in and out of a position, in an afternoon, instead of having to wait a week, selling it bit by appointment. So there's things to be said about both, but in the long run, yeah, I'd like to think we probably deserve a little higher share price. Just what? That's not for me to determine.
Yeah, we certainly don't have a problem with liquidity, do we?
No.
One more question. I think you mentioned it at the start, but it's good to be answered as well. What are the rocks that host the gold mineralization? Are they sediments like Newfound golds?
Yes, they are. In fact, it's a folded turbidite sequence, basically very similar to the rocks at Newfound, and in fact, almost of similar age and depositional sort of style to rocks at Fosterville, which I mentioned earlier. I had the good fortune of visiting the Fosterville mine a number of years ago, prior to Kirkland Lake acquiring it, and stood in the pits, and I marveled at just how similar some of this stuff looked to some of the rocks I was seeing at home. And it shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, these rocks are, Paleozoic age, or the rocks at Fosterville, I think, are slightly older. They may be Ordovician, we're more Silurian, Devonian, and I think actually Newfound's probably just slightly older as well. But we're certainly in the same basin. We may be just in a different part of the basin. They're on a sub-parallel structure to ours, and yeah, they're very similar. It's basically a fine-grained sequence of sediments that are tightly folded and cut by these largely axioplanar vein systems, and locally with handsome amounts of gold in them.
Well, we don't have any more questions in the email or chat, so if
perhaps me another one.
Yes.
Of course, always.
Merci. Tim, in the new target, do you think that you're able to make a new discovery?
Clearly, the evidence supports that those, can we, I guess we can we bring up the presentation again? Just to go back to,
Yes, we should be able to, Thomas should be able to do that.
yeah, just go back a few, go to slide 7. Go to slide 7. Yeah, you see till anomaly B. I think I might have another slide. Actually, continue on, Thomas. I'll tell you when to stop. There should be one there that shows a star. There, right there. Okay. Yeah, you see the letter B, and then you see that star to the just to the right of it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's where those float samples are coming from. And as you see there, the consultant drew several cross-cutting structures sitting through there. And there is a weak till anomaly down ice from that, although not maybe directly on trend as far as known ice directions are, but you can get regional variances in ice direction, 20, 30 degrees over a very short distance, depending on topographic features that the glaciers have to move around. So, clearly, and there's no drilling out there whatsoever. And the ice direction certainly would not push it from either the eastern trend or the western trend over to where currently that float is. And it's too angular. It's really too angular. So that alone, is telling me there's a source of mineralized, mineralized in the terms of it having sulfides in it. The amount of gold in it remains to be seen. And even down at anomaly D, that's a large target. If you look to the screen on the left-hand side there, there's a lot of geochem. There's a lot of noise in there, and look at the features there. You see, in the colored mag. I mean, you can draw lines, and this is maybe the dangerous part of geophysics. You can draw lines anywhere on a geophysical map. No disrespect to those in the geophysical community, but it can be very easy to draw lines on a map. But you need all the evidence, and that's why we're doing the prospecting and the till sampling and the airborne, all married together. You make the best case you can for the best target, and I really think there's more zones of mineralization in bedrock that have not seen a drill hole yet.
Okay. Tim, the discovery north of South Pound at 157 grams per ton is like at what anomaly?
That's right on the shoreline. If you let's see, can we go? Yeah, Thomas, actually on that same slide. Oh no, stay on that slide. You see South Pond? Yeah. Well, there's an X. There's two X's there, two little X's. The X on the right, the one you're circling now. Yeah, that one there. That's basically the midpoint of a cluster of, I think, 13 samples that averaged 36 grams. So, the ice direction would have pushed that, certainly, from somewhere, maybe even within that cluster of till anomalies that you see just where the arrow was pointing there now for the 78,229 ppb. I mean, and there's no drilling, for hundreds of meters in that particular section. And in fact, on the west side of South Pond, you'll see there's a couple of larger circles as well. There's no drilling over there whatsoever. So, what's causing that? I mean, like I said, there's we have a richness of targets to test here, which, is good. But like I said, which ones do you go at first? Because experience has shown me that sometimes your best anomaly is not the one that gives you the best results. I mean, look at the western trend. Look at the results at the western trend, right where the star is. It looks pretty modest to me, doesn't it? In terms of the size of the circles and everything. But that could just be reflecting as well that the source where the gold is coming from is just a little further north than where that X is or that star is for the western trend. So there's a little bit of fuddle-duddleness to some of this type of work, but in the end, like I said, you still need a bit of luck, and you just put the best story together that you can. You use all the tools in the toolbox, and like I said, having the cash to drill a few holes as well certainly helps. And we can drill 10,000 meters plus or minus a few more holes, depending on depth. And yeah, well, like I said, there's lots to do here. You know, the story has not been told here by any stretch, even excluding, you know, the eastern and western trends, which, you know, are obviously a, you know, a focus for, you know, moving forward down the road in terms of resources ultimately. But, you know, there's still a lot of, you know, grassroots discoveries that can be made on this very block of ground.
Thank you.
Okay. You mentioned it a little bit already, but I think to honor the question, when do you expect next batch of results and from how many holes?
Well, I would say it'll be a small number of holes, and it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks yet before we have any meaningful results. Now, whether that's enough to, you know, put out, you know, a meaningful news release, time will tell. It's a very difficult question to answer, you know, because, you know, like I said, each hole is, you know, is its own entity, and you know, we're only one hole away from, you know, a hole 39, you know, with every hole we drill. So, you know, that question is very difficult to answer, but I would say it's at least, you know, 3 to 4 weeks before we get, you know, close to enough results for an assay, or sorry, a news release.
Okay. I think with that, we might wrap it up. We might wrap it up with another, it's not a question, it was a comment, and I think it will be nice to end it with this. Thank you, appreciate the update and great presentation, Tim. Here's to some great results in phase 6. So I think it's a great way to end this webinar.
Great.
And thank everybody for participating in it, sending your questions, you know, being active. We appreciate it, and it's just a part of the series of ongoing webinars that we will be doing moving forward, right, Tim? In order to explain our press releases and provide updates to both the newcomers and the long-standing shareholders. We appreciate your support. The replay video will be available soon, and will be sent to social media and uploaded on YouTube channel and sent to private list so you can review it later. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact CHF Capital Markets or Tim directly. We'll be happy to answer any further questions you have.
Yeah, I think these are, you know, I hate to say it, you know, for the airline industry's sake, you know, but I mean, you know, business travel, you know, maybe a thing of the past. Maybe we can put more money in the ground that way too. But anyway, you know, I like these kinds of things, and I think shareholders definitely benefit from this, and you know, we'll try and make this you know, a regular event, you know, with news, just because, you know, as we know, unfortunately, you know, there's a large component of people that are in the market that really don't read news releases or even care about news releases. Yet, you know, they generally tend to, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, you know, overrun those that are genuine, you know, and want to know. And you know, misinformation, you know, can, you know, unfortunately, you know, sway some people into making decisions that they probably wouldn't. But you know, I think, you know, this is like a trade show, you know, with every press release, you know, and you have trade shows for a reason, right? You have trade shows for a reason, you know, to meet people and things like that, right? And you know, face to face with shareholders. I mean, you know, that's the thing. And you know, like I said, I enjoy doing these. I'm getting more comfortable doing them, and yeah, let's just cross our fingers and hope for the best, and yeah, and wish everybody around us as well luck as well, because all that, you know, it just shines a bigger spotlight on this part of the world for a change, you know.
Great. Well, have a great rest of your day, Tim, and everybody who's still on the call. We appreciate your help and your support, and we'll talk to you soon.
And again, as Irina mentioned, you know, if you have any questions at all, just put them in an email, and you know, it may take me a day or two to get to them, but you know, I do strive to answer everything that comes in. And, I put my name and I put my contact information on press releases for a reason.
Great. Thanks, everybody. All the best.
Thank you.
Somebody's saying
Bye-bye.
all the best to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.